Hello, this is the Fate of the Arts podcast, episode 3. I'm Anthony Etherin, and my guest this time is Rob Watts. So I'm a huge fan of your channel. There aren't many YouTube channels where I can say that I've seen every single video, but with yours I can. It's that compelling.
Well, thank you very much. I don't publish them all that often as well, so I'm going to put it down to that.
How long have you been doing it? It's got to be at least 5 years.
Yeah, you're right. It has been 5 years, but I had a bit of a hiatus. I did it for about a year to start with. The channel didn't really take off, so I didn't think much of sort of stopping while certain life developments happened. I got married, started doing up an apartment that we'd bought here in Berlin, and then I didn't make any videos for 18 months and then started again. So yes, 5 years from, day one, but I've probably been doing it for more like sort of 3.5.
Yeah, I can't remember when I first discovered you. I guess about maybe 3 years ago. And the embarrassing thing I have to say is that I was searching for my own name on YouTube. We've all done it. But, don't pretend
I
you
certainly have.
And this video about palindromes came up. From then on, I was addicted.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the clicks. And actually, that video was the first time I came across your work as well. So that's why we're here, isn't it?
And yeah, you got so many good videos. At the weekend, I was binge watching your channel again to just try and think of some of the episodes we could talk about, which was hard because there's so many good ones. I think I have to mention the one where you do a sort of a full history of the English language in about 20 minutes, which is impressive.
Yeah, it was something that I've been meaning to do for a long time. And obviously, you can't touch on that much. But the thing about the English language is it starts being called English, so Old English, about 1500 years ago, which actually isn't that long ago. You can kind of cover 1500 years of development in 22 minutes if you really push it. I obviously had to leave out certain important periods. Like, I don't think I really go into the Enlightenment during that video.
No.
But, I hit all of the major points, the start of Old English when the Anglo-Saxons, first established themselves on, the island of Britain, and then the Vikings, and then you've got William the Conqueror coming over, and you've got the Middle English period, Geoffrey Chaucer, you've got the printing press, the great vowel shift. You just move your way up until eventually you get, the last 500 years has a little bit less intrigue to it, so far as I'm concerned. So I sort of skip through that bit, and that's how I managed to get the entire history of English into 22 minutes.
Yeah, and you knew that you could go back and fill in the gaps like you did with the Great Vowel Shift. There's a whole
Exactly.
video about that, which is a weird thing. People don't really get it still, but something happened. That's the explanation for the Great Vowel Shift. Something happened.
Yeah, I mean, what's so weird about the Great Vowel Shift? So the explanation we should give is that it takes place over a certain number of hundreds of years. There's debate even over how many hundreds of years it takes, but we could say sort of the, I don't know, 1200s, 1300s, through to, if you really want to stretch it, through to now, right? But generally it sort of stops in the 1700s. And what it is the way that we pronounce long vowels. So, like O, E, they're what called long vowels. The way that we pronounce those changed very gradually over that period. But the thing is, it wasn't random change. Each of those vowels changed in a predictable way. So the way that linguists like to represent this is with a diagram that is a profile view of your mouth, right? And you have vowels that you make at the front. They're called front vowels. And they're stuff like a, I. Then you've got other vowels that you make at the back of your mouth, right? This sort of cavity there, more like ooh, stuff like that. And then in the middle, you've got these sort of noises that we make a lot in English, called a schwa. But anyway, you can predict where the movement of that vowel went during the course of the great vowel shift, and it's what's called a chain shift. Each one moved in lockstep with the other, and that's why it's considered one single vowel movement that lasts hundreds of years. It means, for example, at the start we're pronouncing, the thing that you sit in and float along the water, we're pronouncing it as bought at the start, and by the end of it, well, now we're pronouncing it boat, right, which is actually not a long vowel anymore, it's a diphthong, right, because that's what happens. Once you reach the end of the line in the shift with the long vowels, it turns into a diphthong.
Yeah, but so there might be some physiological reason why this happens, but I don't.
There could be a physiological reason, but that would require, humans to have evolved over quite a short amount of time, or
Or there's a general tendency for us to do it even throughout our lives, which would then
oh,
become on a larger scale. It would show in the language itself. That's my theory. I've just come up with.
and but this is as good as as good an idea as anyone has, because no one does know precisely why it is. It could be influence of other languages like French. It could just be what happens. The
Yeah,
explanations are fewer. Well, actually, they're many, but the certainty is rare.
yeah. So that's in the video, very briefly, and then there's a whole video on it. The Before that, we've got all the invasions, which I think that's the most fascinating bit for me. All the different invasions and all the different words that come with that. I particularly like the Viking ones because it's hilarious how all the Viking words we have now are things like it's what you'd expect to be Viking words. It's skull and kill
Yeah,
and
berserk.
take, even take.
Take is that's wonderful, isn't it? Yeah, the old English for take was nimmen, and we take the word take from the Vikings, which I suppose is giving them a taste of their own medicine a little bit. Ransack. That I mean, if you wanted to think of one word for what we associate the Vikings with doing, it's probably ransacking, and indeed the word ransack does come from Old Norse. But you see, it's a lovely thing to point out that we get all these angry words from the Vikings, and it's true. Knife comes from
Yeah.
the Vikings, but that's from that fits in very well with our first encounters with the Vikings, which are I say the Anglo-Saxons. I'm an Anglo-Saxon. I'm not sure I am, but I say our. The early English speakers encounters with the Vikings are them landing sporadically on our coasts and beating the heck out of us and stealing our things and then leaving again. But then later on, they come over and they do want to settle, and they move from Anglo-Saxon city to Anglo-Saxon city, from kingdom to kingdom, either taking control of those areas or demanding large amounts of money to leave them alone. But eventually they do settle, and then we end up getting much more mundane words from Old Norse. The word husband, for example, is from Old Norse, and that's testament to the way in which the Vikings assimilated rather than displaced the Anglo-Saxons.
They got
married.
soft.
Yeah, they really came over and got they mucked in. Essentially, they assimilated. And so window is, again, a very famous word from Old Scandinavian. It means wind eye in Scandinavian. There are a lot of really fun old English words for the window instead. They're called stuff like the wind thirl. Thirl is this old word that nowadays would be pronounced thrill because the I and the R sort of swapped around, but it means a hole. It's actually what the trill is at the end of nostril, which means nose hole. But we used to call a window a wind hole, basically. Why did I choose that example?
It's a good one, though. And yeah, of course, and the biggest one is the Norman influence and how that, and that's what's given English this amazing ability to be simultaneously Germanic and Latin. I think people overplay the influence of the Roman invasion. The Romans didn't actually leave that many words behind.
Well, the thing about the Romans is they were around before the Anglo-Saxons. So before the language being spoken in the British Isles was not a Germanic language. It wasn't.
So it was. So the Roman words were being replaced along with all the Brythonic.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of words went into, like you say, the Brythonic, the Celtic language of the people that were already living here. But you do have Roman words entering the Germanic languages on the continent that will become English later. And these are very important words. They're words like wine and cheese. These are words
They
that
are
came
both very important.
direct, yeah, and they came direct from the Romans, because the Romans, swanning around Northern Europe and having a break for a drink occasionally and something tasty to eat. But also some obviously Roman-seeming words like mile and street, right? These are words that are in Old English, and we can often think of Old English as being this pure Germanic thing that everything since is a sort of deviation from, but it's not. The Angles, the Saxons, the Jutes, the speakers of these languages, the Frisians, were also adopting words from the people they encountered, and some of those were the Romans. So Old English does have some of these Latin words in it.
Yeah, the breadth of English and the huge vocabulary it has more to do with the Normans. I mean, the famous example is that all the meat we eat is named after Norman French, but when it's still alive, it's Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah, it's a really fun observation, that one. It's one of those ones that people, I still buy that explanation, but there's quite a popular sort of online movement saying that that's an invention of the 16 and 1700s.
I've seen this, that the idea is that just as it always seems to do throughout history, French food becomes valued as the best food, and so we started to use the French words.
Yeah,
But
but
I don't know.
I'm completely on board with this idea that, I mean, the very stratified society that forms after William the Conqueror, this, I mean, we can call him a Frenchman, he's come over from France and he's speaking a type of French, that when he takes control of England, he replaces all of the Anglo-Saxon nobles with his own mates who speak French. He replaces all of the clergy, I think, except for one bishop, with his own French-speaking folk. The entire upper tier of, it's got English life, let's call it, is now speaking French. The only people who are having banquets are speaking French. So I think you'll find that the words that they're using to describe the meats, in that period, are going to be French words.
It does. It makes a lot of sense. It makes too much sense for it not to be at least partly true.
Yeah, I even if it turns out not to be true, I don't know how it can turn out not to be true. It's a very nice way to lower someone into the subject of what England was like in the wake of the Battle of Hastings, and what influence that did have on the English language, and how crucial it is to what English is now. There's a French linguist called Bernard Seculini, and he says that what he said was, without French, English would be a second Dutch. Right? He's trying to say that France should take a great deal of pride and credit for the success that the English language undoubtedly is now, and decries it by saying it would be a second Dutch. But he's right. I mean, without that massive influx of and that complete upheaval in England in that period, and all of these French words that do flood into the language, it would be more Germanic, and it would be more like Dutch. It would, because Dutch is a Low German language, like the Low German languages that were brought over and became English.
Jorge Luis Borges, the example he gives is very good, very subtle example. He says, well, English has the word spirit and the word ghost. One from Latinate languages, one from Germanic. On the surface, they mean the same thing. But when English speakers use them, there's a subtle difference. And that's what gives English its beauty, having this duality.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? And we can think of many more, can't we? To regard something as different, to watch it, or to behold it, or to simply look at it, to to demand something is different to ask for it, even though demander is just the French for to ask.
Yeah.
It can sound a little bit sort of jingoistic to say that English feels unusually rich, but I still think it does feel unusually rich.
Well, you have more of a right to say that than I have because I'm monolingual and I know you speak several languages.
Well, people find a way in any language to express themselves and to express
Mm.
themselves beautifully. But maybe English gives you a few more tools to do it. Maybe it makes it a bit easier.
Anyway, so that's one video that everybody has to go and watch. Another one is along similar lines, the one about the evolution of the alphabet,
Oh yeah,
where you go
yeah.
all the way back to Egyptian and uh, Sumerian. No, I don't think Sumerian. Phoenician and the
That's right.
Canaanites. The
It's
Romans.
amazing that you take these shapes entirely for granted, but some of them, the best example is the first letter of the alphabet. It
Yeah,
is A. Turn a capital A upside down, and you can just about visualize
you
the
can still
fact
see the ox. Yeah,
that it started off as an ox. Yeah, ox. The word for ox being aleph, and the B. I don't remember. I don't always remember everything from my videos. Sometimes I'll finish a video and then it'll all slip from my mind again because I don't need that information anymore. I've put it out there. But B started out as a rather crude drawing of a house.
hmm
The word for which began with a B, and it's a sort of aide memoire.
yeah. It's harder to see a bee as a house now. The
Yeah, I
the
mean, to be
the
fair,
A is like you say, turned upside down. You can see the ox, but
the hieroglyph did not look like a house either. It was a plan of a house, so a view from above of a house, but it doesn't. The original symbol doesn't look like a B. Imagine like a rectangle where just on one of the sides, someone's like taken out the middle of it to allow for a door to be installed, and that's kind of what it looked like to start with. There's a long way from the shape now, but actually, if you watch the progression of the shapes, it makes sense because it's tweak after tweak after tweak, and then so
yeah,
actually here's the most interesting thing about that I think from that video, and that is that the letters F, U, V, and W and Y are all descended from the same single letter. It was a letter that was more or less F shaped, but those sort of two sticks that are the F, they bend around in different ways, and then the sort of the long sort of shaft of the F melts away to nothing to give you a V, but you've got a bit of it, so you can make that Y.
yeah. It's amazing, isn't
And
it? Because we're talking about a long period of time.
yeah,
So these tiny incremental changes can result in this diversity. I mean, U
yeah,
and V anyway have that interesting history that comes later where they're the same letter, effectively. One's being used sort of as a consonant, the other sort of as a vowel, and you could use them interchangeably.
yeah,
And
precisely that.
then we just decide at some point, no, you're a vowel, you're a consonant. There we go. And that solves the problem with F as well, doesn't it? Because you have in Old English, trying to remember the example you gave. It's wolves, isn't it? Wolf
Oh
and
yeah,
wolves.
yeah, you're right. Yeah. So an F in Old English, if it falls between a couple of vowel sounds, or depending on whether or not you voice what comes after it, can be pronounced as a f or a v. So the Old English plural of wolf, it looks like wolfaz, right? It's got an F in it, but it's not. It's pronounced wolvaz. And so later we do replace all those Fs with V's, and F stops doing that double duty. But I don't know why we fixed the double duty of the F, but not the triple duty of the C, or God knows how
Yeah.
many different sounds that the C makes. And then a similar thing happened with the U and the V. Sorry, a similar thing happened with I and J as happened with U and V. Is what I wanted
Mm.
to say. Is that I could be both a consonant and a vowel. The name Julius began with an I and had an I midway through it. But then at some point we decided, okay, we need to differentiate between the vowel I and the consonant I. And we think, okay, well, we'll make the consonant I a bit longer. It's going to dangle down below the line, and that becomes J. And it's in English that we pronounce it
Yeah.
as if it isn't an I.
Yeah, which is
But if
strange.
in a Germanic language, like in German or in the Scandinavian languages, if you replace a J with an I now, it's going to sound more or less the same, right? If you think about the name Johann, spelled Johan, if you do replace that J with just an I, it's still Johann, right? But it's a bit harder to understand that because we've gone sort of so far away from that pronunciation of the J in English, influenced by the J sound in French, you know, the R that they have there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. How familiar are you with Welsh?
Not very, nowhere near enough. I would really like to,
Because
because
you have a consonant I in Welsh, and there's no V in Welsh. So if you see a single F, that's pronounced V. If you see a double F, which is its own letter, the double F in Welsh, that's the F.
its own letter, right?
And
So,
when people find this strange, I say to them, okay, think about in English the word spelt O double F. How do we pronounce that?
uh-huh.
Off. So that's the F, and the word OF, of. So F is still has that V sound in of, in one of the most common words we use. And
Wonderful.
that's just the same as what goes on in Welsh.
That's a perfect example of it then. That's the best way you could possibly explain that to an English person, because that is precisely what's going on, isn't it?
Mm.
And tell me about the double D in Welsh as
Yeah,
well.
that's its own letter too, and that's th.
Right. So that's the like in Etherin, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
And then
Which
is
is
there
this is a nice segue to something else we should definitely talk about, because we have a shared favorite letter that isn't in the alphabet.
I do know where that's going. Actually, I did
We-
realize while we're on that I, in my videos, have been mispronouncing your name, because I have been using the voiced version of the th sound. I was saying Etherin,
Ev, yeah,
yeah, but I realized that you say it's Etherin, and
yeah. But I
you say
also
that, but it's correct.
I'm not too annoyed when people pronounce it however they want to. You know?
I mean, there's
So
something satisfying about the first three letters of your name being the name of that letter that we used to have in English, Ev, that made that noise.
yes, which is not as good as the other th letter,
The thorn.
thorn, the thorn. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Okay, I sell T-shirts that say "hardcore thorn" on them because I'm very keen on the idea of us bringing back thorn.
I
If
think we should
yeah,
definitely.
it's a beautiful letter that is fit for English. It's been it's an aberration that we don't have it now, because English did have thorn when it was being written using runes. It was called thorn because it looked like a thorn. If you want to be able to visualize it, you imagine a rose, which is just its stem with a single thorn sticking out of the side. So what it actually ends up looking like in sort of cursive form, or when it's printed, it looks like a P and a B that are sharing the same space. They're sharing the same sort of barrel there. Thorn. And then that is in use until I don't know when it's in use until, but at least like this, it's still being used, I think, in like the 1600s.
But
You know,
was it the printing press that killed it off completely?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is one of the facts that the social medias really love. You know, people really go for this one, and it's that ye and the phrase ye olde, the y at the start of that is actually this thorn letter that we're talking about. But because the printing presses came from Europe, where this was not a character that was being used, they used a Y instead, because actually the shape of the thorn had taken in certain, I don't know what we call font type places, styles of writing. did look a bit like a Y, so it made sense to use the Y sort. That's what you call the little pieces that you stick in a printing press, a sort. And so, yeah, it actually is still around in spirit on our high streets. Whenever you go to a novelty fudge shop that calls itself Ye Olde Fudgy Shoppy or something like that, or an old pub, Ye Old Bell, the Y is still that thorn letter. It's not pronounced ye, it's pronounced the.
Yeah. And so I don't know why I'm so obsessed with this letter, but I've got one good reason why. I think there are other reasons. I think it's aesthetic. I think it's just a beautiful letter. But one reason is because I write palindromes. And I have on a couple of
Oh,
occasions written palindromes using the thorn because the definite article is not something you can really use in palindromes normally. But if you replace that TH with a single letter, it opens up a
oh.
new world of palindroming.
And that's because HT just isn't doing you any favors. Is that it? There just aren't
Now, if you
enough.
think about what words HT together appear in, we've got
Yeah.
light, things like that, but there's no, that doesn't work because you've got an
Yeah.
EHT.
You're looking for a word that ends with EH and that you can somehow follow with a word beginning with T. I see. Yeah. Thorn would really help you out.
Yeah,
It's also a satisfyingly symmetrical letter, not in the right direction, but it is symmetrical in its way as well. We should bring it back. I mean, we need it, right? It's pathetic that we have to resort to using T and H for a sound that is so common, or for two sounds that are so common in our language, the and the th sound. In Icelandic, they still have the thorn letter. You'll see it on signs in Iceland. They still also have the eth letter, which is essentially a stylized D with a line through it, and they differentiate between what those two letters do. So for the record, in Old English, thorn and eth, these two letters were interchangeably used for those the and th sounds, but nowadays when we talk about eth and thorn, we say that they represent, and as they do in Icelandic, the sounds that actually appear in those words, eth, that voiced sound, and thorn. Anyway, the Icelandic's got them. Why can't we have those letters? Because we
yeah,
need them.
we do. Are those the only two that Icelandic still has, or do they have other runic letters like Win?
They don't have win. No. So win, to be honest, we don't need win. Win wasn't very helpful.
We've got W.
W's fine. The problem with win was it looked very much like a P. And English has a lot of w sounds in it, uncharacteristically large amount of w sounds for a Germanic language, because they tend to come out as v sounds, don't they, in other languages. So it was thought, actually, yeah, we will keep hold of that rune. We'll keep hold of thorn and we'll keep hold of win when we convert the English language to the Latin alphabet, because these are two things that the English language needs. But no, Icelandic doesn't have that. I think Icelandic still has ash, which is the A and the E smashed together that make an ah sound. I mean, you
Yeah.
see it in
When
words
when
like,
I when I tell people that my favorite letter not in the alphabet is the thorn, several people have said to me, "Surely you want the AE."
oh, of course you do. Of course
But
you
no,
do. If you've got like a little emblem somewhere, a little logo, you need to be using that, surely.
yeah, I've thought about it, maybe,
Hmm.
and then use
We,
thorns in my surname, just so it's.
that would have really helped me. I wouldn't have been pronouncing your name incorrectly up until this point if you put a nice helpful thorn in there.
Well, this is why we need the thorn, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I think you could go. I don't know about you. I think you could probably go your entire life not noticing that we have two th sounds and just sort of lump the th at the start of the and that in with the th at the start of three, and not notice that there's something different going
Yeah,
on.
I think so. Just use the thorn for all of it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. If we would just use th for all of it, then we could just use the thorn for all of it. Yeah,
Okay, so we're getting nerdy here,
yeah,
and
we
we're
are.
we're nearly half an hour in, and I've got a long list of stuff here because I like all your videos. So what's one? We'll do one more perhaps. Oh yeah, okay, we've got to do this one. It's a bit a different kind of word nerdy thing, but okay, tell me, what does it mean to crunch the marmot?
It's Crunch the Marmoset, actually.
Is it?
And
Oh, sorry.
I love this phrase so much that I, again, designed t-shirts that people could buy with this written on them. They haven't sold particularly well, to be honest, because it's such it's such nonsense. But this is
So
a
it's a
phrase.
conversation starter, surely. If you walk
Yeah.
into a pub and you're wearing crunch the marmoset, at least
So,
one person is going to be curious, or maybe they don't want to get near you.
yeah, I think that's it. I don't know what crunching is, but I don't want to see you do it to a marmoset. They're probably thinking. So this is a phrase, a misguided phrase that appears in a book called English as She Is Spoke. That's not actually the name of the original book. That's the name of the English language republication of this book, because this book was discovered, it was written in Portuguese, and immediately, as soon as an English speaker's eyes met it, it was apparent that this was going to be a classic, a comedic classic. So what this book is a Portuguese to English phrase book. The problem is the man that wrote it, Pedro Carolino, couldn't speak English. So what he did was find, I mean, for some reason he decided that he needed to write this book. I would not have bothered even attempting to write a book
Yeah,
that was a translation to a language that I didn't speak. But Pedro's
you have to wonder his motivation. I mean, if it was just a cash grab, surely there are
yeah.
easier ways to make a quick buck.
I don't know. You know, it says in the book that he is aiming it at the Brazilian youth. There's a lot of people in Brazil, even back then. So this came out in 1855, I think. Let me just double check that date. Actually, give me a moment. Hold on. I've got it written somewhere. Yeah, 1855. Yeah, it was aimed at. So I think it's a cash grab. Honestly, I do think it's a cash grab. This book ends up in schools, like across the Portuguese territories. It was found in a school in Macau, being used as a genuine textbook on how to learn English. What Pedro Carolino did, undeterred by the fact that he could not speak English, was he took a Portuguese to French phrase book. He couldn't speak French either, by the way. He took a Portuguese to French phrase book and then translated, using presumably the only other book he had, which was a French to English dictionary. He translated word for word the phrases from the French phrases from this Portuguese to French phrase book. And so what you end up with is what look like English sentences, but what they really are French sentences with English words. And to crunch the marmoset, I don't think anyone knows what crunch the marmoset was
Well, where
supposed
would
to have meant.
crunch come from?
Yeah, I mean, he must mean crunch. He must mean crunch. It can realistically be like an archaic spelling of crunch.
Yeah, but then that still doesn't solve the whole problem, does it? Because why are you crunching marmosets?
It doesn't explain it, does it? Listen, I've got the book here. It's a print of it. It's not an original, but it's public domain, so there are companies that will just print them out for you.
Well, do you have any
I
favorite?
could open this at any random page, Anthony, and we're going to find something funny. Go on,
Well, there's one you did at the start of your video. The one make water in mouth. That one.
Oh yeah,
Can you find that?
yeah. I can't remember the precise wording, but what he's trying to say is the food is making my mouth water, but it comes out.
But it comes out vaguely dirty.
Makes me and to make water in mouth, and yeah, it does sound dirty. Okay, I've just opened it at a random page here, and what we have here are him just giving you handy phrases and terms in various different areas. This one is terms for the gaming, as he calls it. Do you like the gaming? At what pack will you that we does play? to the cards. So this is, this is some sort of conversation. Waiter, give us a cards game. What is the trump? The club's king. Play if you please. The heart's aces. We do ought. This time I have a great deal pack. I mean, it's gibberish, but it does make sense if you know that this was at one point French, because then you realize that when it says at what pack will you that we does play, you know that the words game and play are sort of the same in French, and so it starts to make a little bit more sense. And to the cards, right? The French for to play cards is jouer aux cartes, which is so literally play to the cards for play cards. But anyway, it's a marvelous book. I recommend anyone just search for English as She Is Spoke. It's a book that's been enjoyed by many people. Mark Twain wrote the introduction to the American edition when it was published for the enjoyment and the the mirth of all of the English-speaking world. And Abraham Lincoln as well, a biography of Abraham Lincoln mentions that, in the depths of the American Civil War, he's brought this book and they get just a small amount of respite chuckling along to Pedro Carolino's misguided attempts at the English language. It's well worth looking up.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And these days that there are, I know avant-garde poets who are doing things like this, taking one language and translating into another and then into another, just to see the weirdness that comes out. And so it seems like he was doing this not as a poetic exercise, but sort of accidentally. He created a work of genius through being an idiot, basically.
What a few people said when I published it was that it looked like what happens when you use Google Translate and then you reverse the translation. For example, if you did it with like a word with two languages, completely different structures, like if you did it with Mandarin and English, and then you reversed it, what you would get is a kind of gibberish in the other direction. And Carolina has stumbled across a wonderful way of generating gibberish.
Yeah, so that's one of the more entertaining videos you've done that isn't quite nerdy. It's just you're telling the world you've got to look at this weird book.
Yeah, that was precisely my my thought process. As I found this thing, I said, I've just got to make a video about this thing. More people need to know about it.
Yeah, and there are so many others. I don't think we've got time to talk about more, but you'll come back on the podcast at some point, I hope, and we can go through eggcorns and mondegreens.
Oh yeah,
and all these things, and silent letters, why they exist. I mean, we could have talked about that at the start. That's a weird one. All the different reasons we have silent letters, mostly because of Latin snobs and the printing press.
Yeah,
that's the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's some cumulative laziness over the centuries where we've just stopped pronouncing certain letters, quite fragile, and they will disappear from a word. If people are given time, they'll just stop bothering with them. But yeah, there are words like receipt that has a P in it that doesn't need a P, and did not have a P in it until during the Renaissance, someone trying to show off that they were aware that it came from Latin recipere, decided to spell it with a P, and that caught on. The same with the B in doubt. The C in perfect, actually, that shouldn't be there. But we pronounce that one now, which is an even madder example, really.
Yeah. It's been a weird history. Language will still evolve, but I think those sort of Wild West days of language are over now. Now everything's too codified. I mean, it will always evolve, but I don't think we'll have quite as much madness.
Yeah, I often wonder about this. I was trying to think the other day whether in 1,000 years' time, English will be unrecognizable to us in the way that Old English is now. Old English is incomprehensible to an English speaker who can't speak, say something like German or something like that, because you can't even begin to understand how the grammar works. And also, we've lost the vast majority of the vocab. But even if we had the same vocab, you wouldn't be able to understand it because you can't get the grammar right. Is English going to be that different in 1,000 years? I just find it really hard to imagine that it is.
Yeah, I think it will change, but I can't see the same thing happen. Like I say, I think of it as the Wild West days, before the printing press and before the Victorians got hold of it and said, no, this is the way you do it. Nothing
I mean,
else will do.
I'll be honest. I'll take humanity still being around in 1,000 years' time.
Yeah, that's enough, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of that, well, yes, of course, that leads nicely into the fact that this is supposed to be a podcast about the future of art. We got sidetracked for most of the podcast there, talking about words, because that's who we are. We can't help it.
There's art in words somewhere.
Everywhere. Okay, we need to talk about YouTube. So I don't know much about your backstory. What made you start the channel? What were you doing before the channel?
Yeah, so I'm a journalist. I was a broadcast journalist. So I live in Berlin now, and I've been living here for about 7 years. But before that, I was in the UK, and I spent the first 10 years of my sort of not adult life, my career after graduating, working for the BBC. So I worked in BBC local radio, and then I worked at BBC Radio 5 Live, the sort of national news and sports station. Now, reading the news there, writing news bulletins and reading them out loud. And then when I got to Germany, I got a job at Deutsche Welle, which is Germany's international broadcaster. And actually, this was at their English service. And I was presenting on the television for them. So I had to make the switch when I moved from Britain to Germany, from audio to television. And I found that very daunting. I didn't know what to do in front of the camera. What do you do with your hands? Do I make eye contact with the lens all the time, or does that feel creepy? For your information, the opposite is creepy. If you keep looking away from it, that looks weird, shifty. Anyway, so the reason that I started my YouTube channel was because I wanted to get more confident and comfortable speaking down the barrel of a camera. So
Okay.
I started going out into the park behind my apartment, and actually the first time I went out there, because I didn't have any equipment, I hung my camera from a tree, my smartphone actually, and I recorded a video into that. And thinking, well, what shall I talk about? What can I talk about? What do I know anything about? Well, I was learning German, as you know, as feels polite when moving to Germany, and my wife is French, so I'd learned French. So I felt like actually, and this is what definitely does happen when you learn a foreign language. You learn a lot more about your native language. So I felt like I picked up a few things that I thought were interesting, a few interesting observations about English. So I thought, okay, well, that's I'll talk about that. And then I put them up on the internet. I at the time I was thinking, I don't really care if anyone sees this, but there must have been a bit of my mind that was hoping that they would. But I did not think for a moment that what I was doing there was sort of instigating the job that would replace the job that I was trying to get good at.
Yeah.
So about 2 years ago, I left the TV job and went full time with the YouTube stuff instead, and that's how I've ended up just making silly videos about the English language for a living.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that stands out about your videos, apart from the fact that the content is enthralling for a nerd like me, is that the production value is really high. I mean, you clearly know what you're doing, and you've made an effort to make the videos look as good as possible. I'm very impressed by the way you use graphics. So, did you have any background in graphic design, or were you just learning as you went with this?
No, I didn't have any background in it. And if you look at the very earliest videos, in fact, even if you look at that anagram video the palindrome, sorry, video we were talking about before, I can barely watch it because the graphics for me are so terrible. I didn't, and I still don't really have a particularly good eye for, complementary colors and general sort of graphic design principles. But I do feel as though over the past 5 years, I have got better at it.
And in the alphabet video, you've got the graphics of the letters actually shifting shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, that skill is one that's left over from my teens when I used to make Flash animations. Do you remember Flash?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Macromedia Flash. Yeah, Flash games and Flash videos. Well, when I was sort of 15, 16, I was faffing around making little animations with that. And I actually just remembered some of those sort of what was called tweening skills, which is where you make something change from one shape into another or move from one place to another. And that's all that those morphing letters are. It's very basic Flash style animation.
So what were the numbers like? What were your viewers like? How many views were you getting per video at the start? And how long did it take before you took off? Because I'm looking at your videos now, and like I say, I watch them about a day or two after they come up, and you've already got tens, if not hundreds of thousands of views, which must be
When
very satisfying. But the opposite is true at the start. When you put something on YouTube and you get 5 views, you think, oh, okay, that was a week well spent.
one of the reasons I was able to stop and go on hiatus after the first year was that I obviously wasn't getting that much attention on my videos. I think a good video was getting probably not even 10,000 views. But one of the reasons I went back to it 18 months later was that it seems to me like something significant happened with the YouTube algorithm. I don't know this for certain, but whatever did happen, some of my videos suddenly, despite me being inactive for 18 months, started to be picked up and started to be watched, and could see the numbers, rising into the tens of thousands instead of just the thousands. And that was the encouragement I needed to get back on it. It also incidentally happened a couple of days after I got married, so I was going to get back to it anyway. I wasn't entirely because of that, but it definitely gave me extra impetus. But the thing is with YouTube, particularly if you already have a job and then you want to get into YouTube, you do have to have enough enthusiasm for the actual task of making the videos to get you through that period when no one is watching them.
Mm.
And where you're not making any money from it. So either you have to do what I did, which is, you work full time and then in your spare time you work on your YouTube video, or you need to either be able to live on very little money or already have a lot of money. I think those are quite...
And the passion to do it as well, the passion to make it. You said you were motivated by the fact it was going to help your real job at the time, but also with a background in broadcast journalism, you would already know a lot about how, if not cameras, then microphones work. So it was something you could explore further, which must have been interesting to you anyway.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, the same thing that made me become a broadcast journalist made me become a YouTuber. The same interest in making broadcasty things, to put it in a very sort of ineloquent way. But I do think actually it's quite similar to learning a language. Impetus is required. You can't really half-arse it, I don't think, if you want to have a successful social media channel, because one, I think people will notice that you're not that into it, and so it won't inspire them in any other way. And two, you do have to get past that point where you are not going to get that many views, because to start with, people don't. People who don't already have, you could be incredibly famous already in traditional media. You start a YouTube channel and it really struggles to get off the ground. I've seen it happen.
Yeah. Well, there's an interesting thing. You say traditional media, but even with new media, you could be really successful on Twitter or X, and then start another social media, start an Instagram account, and suddenly discover that you're not as famous as you thought you were because people aren't flocking to follow you on Instagram. They want you in that one place, but not another.
That is entirely true. It's very siloed like that. I mean, I have a good following on YouTube, obviously. That's why we're talking to each other. But on any other platform, I don't have any more of a following really on. Well, so for example, I have an X account. It's largely dormant, but it exists still, for RobWords, which is the name I go by when I do my YouTube. And I have an X account that is the one I used as a journalist under my name, Rob Watts. And they got basically about the same number of followers. And I clearly have access to a much bigger audience now than I did when I was doing, my other stuff before. But it doesn't translate very easily from platform to platform, or maybe more relevant, media to media, or medium to medium. People want videos from you. They're maybe not that interested in your microblog in the same way.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed the same thing. I do have a YouTube account, which is, admittedly, I don't do much with it, but I think I have only a couple of hundred subscribers compared to a few thousand on the other platforms. So yes, it's a bit depressing because it makes you realize that people aren't thinking about you that much. When you appear in their feed, they're interested, but otherwise, then after they've looked at your video or after they've looked at a tweet, they forget about you and move on to the next thing. We don't linger in the minds of others as much as we would like to.
Well, if I could take a bit of it off your shoulders, I would say also that as we are in almost all social media now, to some extent at the mercy of the algorithms, right? And the algorithms, and this is definitely the case on X, they're programmed to not encourage you to go to a different platform during your session on their platform.
Yeah.
Right. So they don't, you can post about your latest video, and it's not very likely, from my experience, this is right. If I post,
I know what you're saying.
It's not very likely to go viral, even if it's a very good video. If all that you're putting there is a link, because the algorithm on one platform is not interested in sending you to a different platform. Its entire raison d'etre is to keep you on the platform you're already on.
Oh yes, I've noticed this.
So that makes the cross-pollination automatically a bit harder.
Yeah, and you can see this with the on X. You can see the impressions.
So this isn't scientific. It's a sample of one, but I am nevertheless convinced by it. When I open my Substack account, I encourage people in a tweet to sign up to my Substack newsletter, mention the word Substack in that tweet, and I've never had a tweet shown to fewer people.
Yeah.
I then redid the tweet without the word Substack in it, and suddenly it gets eyeballs.
And this is the thing,
isn't it?
all of these different media are in competition with each other, which you can understand on some level, but of course it's frustrating, as we're both saying here. And another aspect to it is almost like we've just seen with Twitter. What happens if your main social media fragments or disappears? You've got to start again. I mean, I've almost had that experience because Twitter was my biggest platform, and now it's my smallest because of all the chaotic things that have happened there.
And this is why people who make their livings out of social media, and that is why they do what they do, is to publish things on these platforms, are scrambling to diversify and to be across as many different platforms as possible, to have their eggs in as many different baskets as possible, because now more than ever it's felt very precarious. Giant technology firms feel less secure than they ever had, I would say. They feel more like tomorrow something could happen. That means either you have to pull yourself off that platform because it's done something abhorrent, or something changes at the whim of a high-ranking politician in a certain country, and all of a sudden you can't even access that platform. I know a lot of people who make their money on TikTok, and it seemed, it basically felt like it had happened. I don't know if you remember at one point last year that TikTok was gone for people in America.
Yeah.
For American TikTokers, that was cataclysmic. They weathered the storm to some extent. But for me, that moment was one where I thought, oh yeah, okay, I can't have all of my eggs in the Google basket. As
Well, this is what I was going to ask you. Do you have any fears about the future of YouTube? It doesn't seem too precarious from where I'm looking at it, but you have a more intimate knowledge of it.
I do not, but I feel to be completely complacent would be foolish. But I do not really fear that YouTube is on its way out. YouTube is growing. It is, replacing television. And I don't think that is hyperbolic. It is replacing television in a lot of ways. People are watching it on the device that is called their television. They're not watching television as much, but they're watching YouTube on there much more.
Yeah, I would say that I probably spend more time watching YouTube than even any streaming service. It's probably the main thing I watch.
Me too, although I'm probably not a representative sample.
You're more invested in it.
Yeah. I mean, the big worry for creators like me is what changes AI will bring to the platform, and whether or not there will be so much noise created by artificial intelligence that our message can't get through.
Have you felt the effect of that?
So I don't feel as though I have lost out to it yet, because I think I still believe that people want humanity in their videos, and they can just sense when it's not there. And maybe I'm fooling myself, but I think that is still true. I mean, we still would rather own a handmade table than a flat packed one. Flat packed ones are very convenient, so we go for them. But we'd be willing to pay more once we've got the money for an artisan table. And that's an analogy that I keep in my head when I have a wobble about AI. Is that I think history has proven that we value stuff that has taken human hours to create. And hopefully we'll continue to do that. It's whether or not the platforms allow us to continue to do that, or whether or not they are just happy for slop. I mean, let's just call it slop. That's what it is. If they are happy for slop to flood their platforms, because if you just throw enough shit at the wall, it's going to stick for someone. You can put up 30 videos for every one video that I can publish, and across those you get 110% the views that I get for my one.
Yeah, this is the problem.
Then as far as the platform's concerned, that's fine. That's better.
Well, this is it. The problem isn't are you scared in terms of quality? It's purely a fear of quantity, because you can use AI to post 1,000 videos a day, and then suddenly YouTube is flooded. I've noticed lately a lot of videos, a lot of channels I watch that normally you've got a narrator with an animated video or some graphic video. I've noticed in the last year those narrators have started to show their faces a bit more. as if to
Yeah,
say, "Look, I am real." So that
you're
you can see that
absolutely right.
there's a panic going on.
And they're smart to do it. They're right to do it as well. You've got to stress. It's like if you go to that table shop and the one that's got a label on it that says handmade, you're going to go, oh, okay. You're going to buy that with the confidence that it's been made by a person's hand. It's not a paranoid thing to put that label on there. It makes sense to do it. And I think people are wise to do it because while now I think I certainly can anyway. I can tell when a voiceover is artificially generated. We will reach a point where you can't tell. Of course we will. I mean, the rate of development of this technology is extraordinary. And so yes, you do need to point out that you're real. Although AI is getting very good at looking like a real person as well. So you're going to have to find as many different ways as possible to prove that you exist, which is, well, I mean, how dystopian is that?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you heard the bit on the first episode of this podcast. Well, I tell the story that I was asked to send a recording of a poem to
Yes.
a magazine, and I sent it, and they came back asking if it was really me or if I was using some technology.
Yeah, well, that's because you're performing extraordinary tasks that actually so you could definitely ask AI to come up with a palindromic sentence or even a palindromic poem, but it would be garbage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It would be.
I've tried
It
this.
wouldn't have any
I've
of
tried this
the
because I've got to check out the
wit.
competition. So I've tried it, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah, of
awful.
course. Yeah,
It's a
you really
relief.
have.
It's so terrible. It's yeah,
Yeah.
good to know.
Yeah, it is good to know. But we'll see where it goes. Maybe establish your I'm not talking to you here, Anthony, but I was saying one should establish widely one's humanity, make people fully aware you exist right now, because in the future it might get hard to confirm it.
I don't think we're far off the stage where they could have what looks like a real person sitting in front of a real camera, but
Yeah.
it's entirely generated.
But the thing is, like,
But like I say, the humanity will be missing. There'll be something that gives it
there will
away.
be something. Well, rubbish people will continue to make rubbish things. Right.
Mhm.
So it doesn't matter what tools you give them, what they'll end up producing will not be very good for one reason or another. Right. But on the flip side of that, talented people using AI will make brilliant stuff as
Yeah,
well. And this is a tool that will and I suppose should be used by talented people to realize, their art by all means. I just really like it if they didn't steal my lunch while they're at it.
yeah. Have you ever used AI? I mean, in your channel or in any other creative way?
I did one video right when what was the name of it? It was an AI image generating thing. I've already forgotten the name of it. One of the first ones that had just come out, and I did a video that's still up explaining the origins of American state names. And in there were some odd concepts, like the idea of a Viking being in New York City. I thought, oh well, there's this new technology where I could create an image of a Viking in New York City. Wouldn't that be quirky? So I created that image. I put in the corner AI generated image, and I made maybe 2 or 3 images and used them in that video. And people did not like it. They did
No.
not. Right. I want to stress that this is really early on, right? Before there was a lot of people were even aware that this was a thing. I know I sound like I'm backpedaling, but it's true. And I have not used generative AI in any way, shape, or form in my videos since then. There is not a word in my videos that has been written by AI. There is not an image that has been generated by AI. But I do find AI tools useful for research. You cannot
Mhm.
take anything that a ChatGPT, for example, says
No,
that is not a source, right?
no.
If it
But you could
says
check
something,
it against sources.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly. So you
yeah,
can still, if you can find two corroborating sources, this is my old sort of BBC training, right? And they're not just corroborating, but they've also got to reflect, the facts, or the consensus as well. But if you can find that, then AI has really helped you out there. Or for example, I've just been researching the origins of the word karaoke, and that has involved looking through Japanese newspapers. I don't read Japanese, but I thought this would be a really good way to tell the story in a new and maybe more accurate way, because basically, until this point, people telling this story about the invention of karaoke in the English language have been just sort of parroting stuff that's been said in the English language since. And I have found some genuinely new stuff. And how did I find that genuinely new stuff? Because I used AI to read the Japanese, right? And say, is this article what I think it is? It says yes. And then you do a double check of the information that you get from that, obviously, because you still need to second source everything. But
yeah,
that's amazing that you can do that. That's something that is definitely a boon and an improvement
yeah. Well,
on AI.
I agree. I agree with that, and I also think in general, it's it's useful be as a tool the same way every other tool is used. There is something a bit uncomfortable about using it to make an entire thing, like make an original image or an original text. But if you're using it as you are to research, or if you're using it to modify an existing work of your own, that you the simplest example of this would be to put a text in and say, "Can you check for typos?"
Yeah,
Get AI to check for the typos. There we are.
yeah,
You're done. So
yeah,
using it as a tool like that, I don't have any problem with that. So it's but the idea of an entire video being made by it or an entire book being made by it, that's that's something I'm very uncomfortable with.
yeah. And I've seen them, and they're generally garbage.
Hmm.
When it is someone who wouldn't be able to create uh, an engaging video without this means, through their own ability to write or to express themselves, then what they end up producing, it does end up being sort of garbage anyway, if they don't have that sort of artistic knack. Maybe that's a really awful thing to say. Perhaps it is. And we should probably mention that AI shouldn't be used gratuitously, because we're still working out what the environmental impact of it is, but it seems like it's outsized, and I think you've got to somehow justify your usage of it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can imagine a time where I learn more about that. We learn more about that.
When it first came out, a lot of people were talking about that, but that seems to have gone quiet now. And I don't know whether that means it's now not as bad or if there's just some cover up. I don't
People
know.
have just realized it's really useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, for example, I do really hate AI generated texts. Um, Something that my podcast co-host Jess Zafarris, she hates even more than I do. But I recently, we have ads sometimes in our videos, and we will run the script by the advertiser. I'll generally write the script, but we'll run it by them to check that they're okay with it and that it's sort of vaguely saying what they want. And I just sent one to someone, to a brand, and they sent it back, but it had clearly been rewritten
Mhm.
by AI. M dashes everywhere, lots of talk of deep dives and stuff like that. All these AI text tropes, and it's like, what do I do here? Because this is the future. I've got to learn how to handle when someone tells me you've got to read this out loud, and I know it's read by AI. between you and me, I will not read that out loud. I
A
will
lot
find a
of
way to rewrite it in a human voice. You know?
yeah, a lot of poets are very annoyed about the M dash thing because poets use a lot of M
Yeah.
dashes.
Yeah.
So the paranoia now among poets is everybody going to think this is AI?
You know, I was saying in my newsletter at the end of last year, so 2025, I mean, so a couple of weeks ago, that one of the words of the year, if they could have somehow managed to justify that it was a word, should have been the M dash because it had a heck of a year, you know,
Mhm.
it, appearing in more text than it ever, more English language text than it ever has, surely, you know. And if they can justify 6-7 as a word, maybe they could justify
Yeah.
an M dash too.
YouTube Shorts came in, I guess it was a few years ago now. I know the initial reaction was that this was essentially going to take over completely and that longer
Mm,
form YouTube videos would be secondary. That doesn't seem to have happened.
no,
No.
I don't think it will either. I think I'm saying this. I published a short about 3 hours ago, so I'm not against them. I don't publish them very often. I maybe publish them half as often as I publish my long form videos. But people are just in a different mindset when they watch vertical videos to when they watch horizontal ones. I think just are
Mm.
right, uh, and there is no. I don't think a short steals away someone who's in the mood for watching something long form. I can only talk from personal experience, but there's very little cross pollination between my short videos and my long videos. Right? There's no meaningful number of people that watches a short and then goes, "Oh, I like that. I'm now going to watch one of their long videos." No, no, they're not in a long form session. They're in a short form session. So I think of them as separate ecosystems. I've always thought of them like that, and I haven't seen any evidence that they are. And I don't think really anyone's talking about that anymore. It seemed at one point like YouTube was going to go all in on it and was going to, you know, basically just try to be TikTok, but it hasn't happened, and it's only consolidated itself as, you know, outside of the big streamers, the place to watch widescreen 16:9 videos.
Yeah, well, that's the feeling I get, and I'm very glad about that.
Yeah,
I would
me
much,
too.
I don't think I watch any shorts.
It's a slippery slope once you get into them. You know, I
Ah,
actually
okay.
started
But
doing
you're on TikTok too, aren't
TikToks.
you?
Yeah, but I haven't posted. Well, I just posted one like just now, but I was properly on it before my YouTube channel sort of took off. I was in on all the trends, knowing what was going on. You know, the sea shanties. Do you remember when sea shanties were a thing? That was basically my epoch of TikTok. But I'm not really there with it all, and I think I can get by quite happily not being. I think I lost a lot of time to shorts videos. I spent a lot longer on the toilet than, than was necessary when we started
People are getting
with
worried about you.
shorts videos. Yeah, but they are massive, and once you are into them, you know, you feel part of something, and they're great like that. And within seconds, you know, literally less than seconds, if you're not into something, you can be onto something else that you do like. So you're getting these constant hits, and you know, seeing a lot of very well produced, or not even well produced, just, you know,
Entertaining.
entertaining things or interesting things. I definitely don't have anything against them.
Yeah. See, I've never been on TikTok.
I'm warning you not to do it. They'll suck you in. There'll be some corner of TikTok that is exactly designed for you, Anthony. It'll be there.
Probably.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
So, algorithms then. Let's talk about algorithms. How have they changed over the last 5 years?
So I mentioned how I stopped making videos and then I started making them again after my videos ticked up. And I conjectured that I thought that was because of an algorithm change.
Mhm.
And it is conjecture, although I do believe that there was a change in how YouTube operated at that point. And so far as I understand it, it was a switch from promoting creators with big followings to promoting videos that held people on the platform, right? So in that period, you got small creators like me whose videos started getting views, and then you had very big creators with millions of followers whose videos stopped getting views, right? Because for whatever reason, I guess they weren't making videos that were actually objectively all that good, right? And a big change recently is you could see as YouTube doubling down on that idea. Because if you look through your feed on YouTube now, you will see a lot of videos, maybe a quarter, more than a quarter of the videos you see will have maybe a few hundred views, right? Because YouTube is testing the water with more creators, with smaller creators. It's trying to see if, oh, there's someone over here, they've just posted something, they don't have a big following, but could this hold someone for an hour? Could this start them on a session that keeps them on here? Let's see. Which is great news if you are starting out right now, because your chance to go
Well,
viral
in a way,
is better than it's ever been right now.
yeah. I mean, I think that's a really good thing in general,
Yeah.
but it might not be something that's welcomed by established YouTubers.
No, it's annoying. I want your homepage to just be my videos, not someone else's. No, I don't want to pull up the rope ladder, pull up the drawbridge at all. And it does mean that you're going to have some wonderful people breaking through who otherwise wouldn't. And hopefully those people are not bots. They are
Well, yeah, this is the
real
next
quality
question. Do
things.
you think that they'll sort the algorithm out so that it's weeding out all the AI slop?
We'll see. I have no
Because
idea.
it doesn't seem to be so far.
There is actually a box you tick when you upload a video to YouTube now, that where you declare whether or not it's got
Yeah,
any representations in it of events that didn't happen. YouTube must be doing something with that information.
yeah.
It's either doing it so that it doesn't show its people, or it's doing it so it can track how that performs anyway, I suppose. But I think because there will be AI videos that are good, and there will be genres of AI video that develop that are popular, that hit upon something, and those will be proliferated. I can't see why YouTube would not proliferate those videos, not share them around, if it keeps people on the platform and allows them to show ads to people, which is ultimately what it's about. And I don't think that's an unfair thing
Yeah.
to say. I mean, it's a business. That is what it's about. It's basically what we're all trying to do.
In my naive way, I was thinking it might champion artistic integrity over money, but
Well, I mean, the problem there is that AI is cheap, really cheap.
mm.
It's cheaper than making it, for real.
We don't know what the future holds on that front. I'd like to think
I know that the
YouTube will,
algorithm isn't showing me much AI slop, so it's worked out that I don't like it.
yeah.
It's either worked out that I don't like it, or it isn't showing anyone that much AI slop. I expect it's just treating everyone. It's just working it into the algorithm like it would any other content, basically.
I've kept you for far too long here, but honestly, I have more questions. We could go on for hours, but we'll save it for another time. I'm trying to make this my one last question I always ask. What's one piece of advice would you give to somebody starting a YouTube channel right now?
Pick a niche that you are passionate about and that you feel you could make lots of videos about without getting bored. Because that is what YouTube wants you to do. And if you're there to be a success on YouTube, then you've got to do what the algorithm wants you to do. Gosh, that's bleak, isn't it? That sounded way more bleak than it did in my head.
But
No,
there was positivity in there, I think.
yeah. What YouTube wants you to do is to hit upon a formula that works, and then to keep applying that formula, right? That's what I'm saying. My channel is not niche enough, right? I'll do a bit about a man who wrote a silly book, and I'll do the history of the alphabet over here. If I was starting again now, I would pick either silly books or alphabets. And then I would develop a smaller but much more dedicated single audience, right? I'm lucky that I've managed to find quite a broad audience anyway. But if I was starting out, that's what I would be doing. I would try to find a smaller but more dedicated audience that was really into what I did, and that would follow me where else I went.
Yes. So I need to. I know that it's later for you, isn't it? You need to get some rest.
I do.
I need
Yeah,
to. I need to.
it is.
I need to grab a drink and then get some rest.
Good on you. You've earned it.
Yes, but it's really good to meet you. I knew it would be because I know that we've got a lot in common and same nerdy interests. And yeah, I hope we can do this again sometime.
I'm sure we will.